Hakim gave us 5 different principles, which we call the pillars of chematology. He first said there is no time. First thing he taught me in 1992, sat down with him in discussion, he said, time is an illusion. Time is only a function of distance. Well, right away, that sparked my interest. That's the same thing the Buddha said. It's the same thing it says in Taoism. It's the same thing it now says in quantum physics. Time is irrelevant. And the wonderful, beautiful thing is the so-called master of time, Stephen Hawking. Stephen Hawking did his whole work. You can see in the book about him, in the movie about him, which was excellent. He very early decides his doctoral thesis is going to be time. So his brief history of time became his book, his doctoral work, and all of that. And he was supporting Einstein with black holes and this and that. Just in the last 10 years, Stephen Hawking has now rejected his whole life's work. And he understands there is no time. It is an illusion. And he understands there is no vacuum of space, and that Einstein's theory of black holes was not actually correct either. We can go into the physics of it, but it's interesting that here the master of time is now agreeing there is no time. So then he also said there is no death, as we mentioned. Number 2, he gave me 3 right to start out. The third one is key. There is no separation. Everything that is connected to everything else that is. Every cause is an effect. Every effect is a cause. Everything that happens it could be 70 trillion light years away from us. A supernova happens in the deepest parts of the universe. It does affect us. It affects the Earth. It affects our solar system. It affects our consciousness. So we now know that. He gave those 3 and let it sit. I ruminated on those, came back in 2003. We picked up after the first book was out, which he was very proud of, Land of Osiris. Now to continue on the second book, which became From Light into Darkness, he then laid the 2 bombshells on me. There is no soul and there is no God. But it takes a lot to understand those, because those 2 are the most difficult for people to understand, even people on the path, New Age, etc., because people will say to me, wait a minute, I know there's a soul. I've connected with my past lives. I know I was this one in Greece. I was this one in Egypt. And I have done soul retrieval for people, blah, blah, blah. And other people, yes, I know there's God. I have a personal connection with the deity. I speak to God all the time, blah, blah, blah. You cannot deny these things. These are subjective experiences which cannot be denied. But objectively, the whole idea is if number 3 is correct, there is no separation, then there cannot be a creator separate from creation. Creation and creator are the same thing. And therefore, there cannot be a creator that's separate from us. What the key understanding of my second book is, it has been conflated in academia that religion and spirituality are the same thing. In fact, in academia, it's basically taught that we human beings are hardwired for religion. We've always had some concept of religion. Well, I denied that categorically. And I made a separation in the book that has to be where it begins, that spirituality and religion are not the same thing. Spirituality is what maybe you could say human beings have always hardwired about. As soon as human beings became to learn to think critically, they looked up, they looked down, and they said there is something more than the physical, something more than this body, something else is going on. We call it spirit, never created, never destroyed, continues on. We can also call it consciousness, okay? But again, to say deity means it's a separate being, a being that's separate from everybody else. And if there is no separation, it cannot be. And so to say soul means we're individuals and that we each have an individual soul that reincarnates. Well, we deny that too. Again, what I saw clearly was what Hakim was teaching was the same thing that was taught by the Buddha. It was the same thing that was taught by Lao Tzu, where Taoism and Buddhism are the closest to the ancient Khemetic teachings, that we are not individuals. We're all just one soul that is collective. I use a quote in my second book, From Light into Darkness, from Satya Sai Baba, who was talking about the fact of the term Jivatma, which in Sanskrit means soul. He said, we're not billions of Jivatmas. There's only one. We are all just reflections of the one. And basically, that is the Khemetic teachings. That is what Hakim taught. So we start out with the idea that they had no concept of death. They had no concept of deity. So neter never meant deity. It was a principal aspect of the divine. And altogether becomes, we could say, the 360 senses acting together makes you divine, makes you in contact with the divine. There is no separation between God and man. There is no separation between souls.
I can't agree with you more. My goodness, Stephen, I'm getting the hair on the back of my neck is raising because During my shamanic vision quest, in my book, I transcribed the teachings I got during my out of body experience, and one of them was, we are all part of one soul. We are pieces of the one main soul.
Exactly.
And it's just it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating.
So what the second book really describes is how this evolved. Basically, though, what you said, the idea of God and deity really comes from ancient Egypt. So there is a point there around, we use the time period of around 2000 BCE, where we move astrologically into the age of Aries. Aries, of course, the ram becomes a key symbol in Kemet at this time, where they develop, and we talk about cycles. Again, we basically, people can go back to Land of Osiris. We talk about 5 stages of the sun, which is the daily cycle, which also represents our developing consciousness. We're in the cycle of darkness now, which began about the same time as the age of Aries comes in. It's called the age of Amun or Imin. It means hidden darkness. It's the symbol that had no image, and it was the sign then where actually then religion begins. Because the deity, the Neter Amun, only one of 360, only one of the 5 stages of the sun then becomes elevated to what you could say the king of the netters, where the first time that the people, in my opinion, have a concept of deity, that this netter now become important in all the other netters, and we could say it's God. And this occurs around 2000 BCE. Again, the Jewish calendar goes back 5,000 some odd years. Around 3000 BCE, Judaism begins. It begins in Kemet, no doubt about it. So between 3000 BCE and 2000 BCE, we move into this age of Amun, the age of Aries, which is the age of patriarchy, which is characterized by male deities and organized religion and institutionalized warfare and separation of peoples, us and them. And this is why we say, when I used to give this talk, I would talk to people about the 5 stages of the sun and say to them at the end, where do you think we are now? And in the early days when I would do this, most people, without having the understanding, would say,
Hold that thought, Stephen. We're at a commercial break, and I want to